July 21st, 2020. We'll call the Wright County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here in person and remotely. We have 4 commissioners here, and Commissioner Burrell is joining us remotely. The first order of business is the minutes. Anyone have any corrections?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Potter. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Rob votes aye.
All right. The minutes pass. The agenda, anything that we need to add or delete from today's agenda?
I have no items.
I'll make a motion.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Potter,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Delyden. No discussion. Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Rob votes aye.
All right. Agenda is approved. Consent agenda. Is there anything that you'd like to remove for further discussion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve today's consent agenda.
All right.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Potter, who was a half a second ahead of you. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Rob votes aye.
All right. Consent agenda is approved. All right. Moving on to our timed items. And we're right at 9:02. And actually, it'll be Virgil Hawkins is.
Oh, Virgil's
yes.
coming.
So you're at 9:04, Bill.
We have a virtual version.
Yeah, virtual Virgil. All right. Good morning, Virgil Hawkins, Highway Engineer.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board of Commissioners. I have one item for your consideration this morning, and it's to award the low bid for corner bar demolition in St. Michael to Thane Companies of Albertville in the amount of $29,983. And there's an abstract of bids attached in your packet.
I was rather surprised by the wide range. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that wide of a range before of amounts. It seemed, yeah, pretty dramatic, wasn't it?
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually, we called Thane after the bid opening, and just to make sure they were good with their price, that they didn't leave anything out, and they said, no, that's their bid, and they're good with it.
Yeah, well, good.
Good.
All right. And Commissioner Potter.
Madam Chair. Virgil, with the engineer's estimate being $65,000, if you took out Fane's bid, then the rest of them were clumped pretty close together, so that tells me that Fane's really wanted this job pretty bad. And the other question is that $18.99 marker stone, is that being saved for either St. Michael's historical significance? Has that been noted in there?
Yes, that was in the specifications, that had to be saved and provided to the city of St. Michael, and so that'll be done as part of the demolition.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Great. Commissioner Delyden.
Virgil, do you have an idea, time frame?
Yes, we understand they'd like to get started as soon as they can get all their permits, and we'll have a short pre-construction meeting. So after today's award, we're going to let them know and schedule a pre-construction meeting. So we're hoping they would start within the next week or two.
Wait a minute. You said a pre-construction meeting. I thought this was a destruction.
I know.
All right, you confused me with your term of words. Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the award of the corner bar demolition to Fane Companies.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Potter. Any more discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Delyden was the one that ordered the destruction of the corner bar.
I was just going to say that. You just beat me to the punch on that.
There's too many memories there, bad memories. I want to get rid of it.
I feel bad, I was only there once after a wedding, I don't know.
Was your first beer there too?
My wedding wasn't there, but, all right. Hearing no more discussion, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Roll votes aye.
All right.
Madam Chair, I think a
Passes
bunch of people just
5-0.
wept outside.
Yeah, well, you know, things like that are kind of sad when they come to an end, for sure. So, all right. Now we welcome Mr. Bill Stevens, our Environmental Health Officer.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I have no problem following Virgil Hawkins, so that's. About a month ago, I came to you asking for a resolution to apply for a Clean Water Partnership loan for our project for a low-interest loan septic system upgrade program. We were notified that we did get accepted for that program, so I come before you today asking for another resolution to actually accept that loan. And we will then go through the process of finalizing the paperwork, and hopefully within a week or so, we'll be up and running with the program that we've been doing for about the past 9 years, actually.
Yes, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you explain what that septic system program is so the public knows why we do it and what it's about?
It's actually a program that was started with the Crow River Organization of Waters. They did it for the entire watershed that they implemented there, or worked with there. We got into it simply because it's a low-interest loan program where people can upfront the cost for design and installation of their septic system upgrades. And these are for systems that are failing outright, that are non-compliant. It's not just for because they want to put an addition onto a house or something like that. So we can upfront the cost for people. That money then goes on to their property taxes as a special assessment over a 10-year period, and they pay it back incrementally to the county, who we then pay back the state. We don't actually hold the money at the county level here. The MPCA holds the money there. And so it's been running for about 9 years, it's working very well. Over the 9-year period that we worked with the Crow River Organization of Waters, we utilized just short of $1.5 million in the program, upgraded, oh gosh, I have the number here somewhere, 109 septic systems through that particular program over the 9-year period. We average about $165,000 a year average utilizing this program, so we hope for this 3-year loan program to get about 30 systems, give or take. If we are successful utilizing the money again, we have the option of accessing more money through the program up to, through our general obligation note, up to $1.5 million. We don't anticipate we're going to go that high, but we have the option to do that if the program proves to be that much more successful this time around.
It's nice to see programs like this. We just had to put in a new septic system, and they are not cheap.
No, they're not.
So to give this option for people that they can extend this over 10 years is a very nice option.
It is. We do not, Madam Chair, we do not require collateral, so to speak. Let's say like a private lending institution, their property is their collateral.
Yep.
And the property obviously is not going anywhere. So we're
Right.
comfortable, and the county auditor's office, Bob Hevola, has been very supportive of the program in the past, and we hope to continue to work with them very well with this.
Good.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And Bill, thank you, Madam Chair. And Bill, and I think this program is fantastic, and people always complain about government just doing things that are just completely crazy. This program is fantastic, I think, because it's helping people get their septic systems fixed. Because some people in the past, I was a realtor before past life, some people would just try to hide it if they could. But this way now that's incentivizing, let's fix it, let's clean it, let's make it right, let's move forward, help yourself and help your property and help the environment.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Potter, I agree with you with that. It has been very successful. It's been very well received, and the program, quite honestly, does not work unless we have so many people in different departments at the county level here working together to get this done. So it's not just me. There's a lot of other people working on this too.
And the new systems have a lot of technology, so they've got, the alarm that if something would go wrong, it's, connected. They have to hook it up electrically too, so it's pretty complex. I've never really had to deal with with this at this level before, so.
Madam Chair, that is true. Technology has changed over the years. Wright County is kind of in the forefront for using advanced technology in cases where it's necessary because of the number of lakeshore properties that we have. We don't try to utilize those. We try to keep things as simple as possible, but in certain situations, it's unavoidable, and so we are able to help with those systems also.
And with that, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve or adopt the resolution to accept the Clean Water Partnership loan.
Second.
All right.
Well, will second.
Okay, motion made
I'll
by
second
Commissioner
that.
Potter, seconded by Commissioner Burrell. Any more discussion? If not, this is a resolution, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Well, votes aye.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you for that program going.
Okay. Moving on to Bob Hevala, Auditor Treasurer, has a few items for us.
Hey, good morning, Board. The first item on the agenda is the release of the 2019 demographer's estimate of our population. We're up about 2,000 people from 18 to 19's estimate, so we had to wait till now to give municipalities a chance to challenge their estimate numbers. We didn't hear any revisions, so I'm releasing the demographer's estimates. You'll see that it's dated in June, but we had to wait till today.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Delighten.
It's going to be very interesting when the census is done on how close this estimate is, because I have a feeling it's not going to be, it's not super close. I have a feeling we're going to be a lot higher than what they've been estimating. So it'll be very interesting. That information, when will that be out? Next year? End of next year?
I thought it was delayed, though.
They got delayed, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
They delayed all that for a while, so I'm thinking 2022 before that actually comes out.
Oh, really?
I
Be that
don't think
long?
it's gonna come out that quick, and the over-under's at 142 right now.
And that would be, usually it's ready for the 2022 elections, so, that way when they can, if they need to redistrict and that kind of thing, depending on the numbers of people in the different districts, so.
And Madam Chair, that's where the crunch comes on. That won't be a factor in Wright County at the commissioner level, because we've already been basically told we're fine.
Right.
But other areas that might have a major impact, and there's a big crunch going on now. Are they gonna get this done in time for all those things to happen? And hopefully it does.
Hopefully it does, for sure.
It will be interesting, though. Thank you.
All right. And that was basically informational. Do we need a motion to accept it? or
This is
just
informational.
Informational. All right, then the CARES Act grant application.
So, Commissioners, the state released another CARES grant. This is for elections. So Wright County is looking to get $98,281.35. Portion of this is going to be given to the precincts for themselves. This is going to cover the extra costs to deal with the CARES. Could be cleaning, could be supplies, could be for additional election judges in the polling place. One example would be hiring somebody who just cleans in between voters. We at the county, we're looking to buy a piece of equipment to open up the envelopes, so we have an idea of how we're going to spend the county share of the CARES funding. Plus, we're looking to bring on some additional judges to help out with the anticipated increase in number of people voting absentee. But this is the CARES Act grant application, so I have to apply for it. Again, this is a block grant, so
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the CARES Act grant application and supporting resolution for the block grant in the amount of $98,281.35. And with that, I have a comment after a second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Delyden, and you have a comment?
More of a question. So, Mr. Hevala, Bob, how are we doing on the recruitment of election judges? I know that has been kind of and I'm guessing, can we use some of these funds to recruit? I mean, I guess unfortunately you never have to market at this level, but.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Vetch, I'm aware that there are some counties that are facing that issue. I Chris has reached out. I think we heard from one municipality that there's a little bit of a concern. We can use this money to pay extraordinary fees to get people in there. But if you normally hire election judges, this isn't meant to replace that.
And then other one, are we gonna have extra people kind of on the bench just because you don't know if people, when push comes to shove, they decide
Right,
that?
I mean, there might be some people that pull out.
Exactly, or they end up just coming down with some
Right.
of the illness or anything in that window of time, and then they're quarantined and you're out of luck on that.
But, Madam Chair, Commissioners, I know Chris is actively engaging the precincts to say, are you planning for this? I don't have an update for you as to where they're at with it, but I know that they've been forewarned. We looked at what happened at Wisconsin. Who knows what the pandemic would do before August 11th,
Or November.
or more in particular in November.
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote on the resolution.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All votes aye.
All right, resolution passes 5-0.
The board, in your packet, you should receive the first 6 months budget report. This budget report is now built into the budget workbooks that will be presented to you coming up shortly. There are some line items that we're just paying attention to, but I think we're going to address this in the budget because it's, this year, is that indicative of future years? Like overtime, some revenues, again, seem to be doing just fine. Do you have any questions about the 6 months budget report? Otherwise, I think we'll be dealing with it in the budget process.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bonner.
Bob, I scanned over it, I didn't see anything that really just stuck out. Because I know earlier on in the year, the fear of the revenue is gonna go, you're gonna be bleeding. Everything else, all their, the entities are doing it too. But I didn't see anything that really just said, wow, we got a problem here.
Madam Chair?
yes,
The only thing that, when I was looking at, there's a couple of different departments that are short-staffed, but yet their salary and fringes were up at close to the 49% mark, which to me, I wouldn't have thought would have been that high. So that's my only concerns, and I didn't know if some of that money is still held back and unallocated and transferred later. Is that the reason why some of those are at that rate?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I believe we've allocated out the budget for negotiations. So the budget should be in each respective department. I'd have to look at whatever department you're looking at. Was there overtime above where it should be? That's,
Well,
It's still that line, you can't transfer overtime line to your budgeted personnel line.
but if you're looking at the bottom line for each department, I wonder.
no, I was just looking at the salary line where it showed like 49%. Which, I mean, that's where it should be, but
right,
there were just some departments that I had thought had sheriff's office and health and human services and a couple other departments where they're shorthanded that I would have expected them to be a little less than, maybe at 47% or something. But, and that might be, 1% might be the difference.
yeah.
I don't know. It just, to me, I was expecting it to be just a little lower.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
I was kind of in that same thought that we'd be at like 47, 46, just because there's a lot of positions that we held open for 3 months here
Or longer.
or longer, and that's the reason I'm kind of perplexed that we're at the 50, close to 50%. So it just kind of makes me, how did we not actualize those savings?
Yeah, and especially, and then I do realize that over time, there's nothing we can do about that. It's high in a lot of departments, but still, that's a separate line item.
Exactly, and I would have thought the line item might have been at 70%, but the personnel line would have been at 45. So I'm trying to figure out how that played out.
Madam Chair, Commissioner DeLine, I think we can take a look at that, because you're right, it is just right on the full-time personnel for the sheriff's office that they're at 49% at 50% of the year.
Yeah. And IT, there's just a couple of them that I just expect them to be just a little lower than the 49%.
Okay.
But again, if you're only short 3, 4 people, that maybe that,
I mean, I guess in the sheriff's office, only 2 or 3 people, it would only be 1% just because the budget's so large, but,
Yeah.
you know, some of the other smaller areas.
yeah, so, anyway, yeah, that was the only thing that concerned me. And I'll make,
We didn't make a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the June revenue.
I'll second that.
report.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch. Do you have any questions, Charlie, or any other comments?
No, I don't, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair, one other question. On the CIP at the very back there, is there a reason it doesn't quantify the percent of the budget on a lot of those items?
CIP budget?
Yeah. I mean,
It's a multi-year budget. I wonder if that's why we don't.
is that
show
why
the
it doesn't,
percentage, right?
maybe that, okay. I was just
But you'll-
curious because I was watching a couple times here and I thought, well, I'm eventually going to ask, why is that doesn't quantify out? So maybe it's just,
But you will see the dollar amounts.
yeah, I see the dollar amount, so,
Because it crosses multiple years, we don't have that percentage.
okay.
All right. Hearing, if there's no more discussion, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Raul votes aye.
All right. It is accepted. Okay, moving on to our items for consideration. We have some 4 committees, or actually 3 committees and a workshop. And Mike, if you'll highlight the Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Personnel Committee Employee Relations met on July 8th, and I sat in for Commissioner Delyden, and we had John Johnson remotely. Others present were Jamie Goodrum Schwartz, Michelle Miller, and Jill Pooler. The subject of the matter that day was the reclassification of a mental health professional social worker 3 to a social worker 2 position. And part of the crux was it has been really tough to find that person, to get that that position filled because of all the requirements. And the hope was to move that down to a worker 2 so they can fill the position and maybe that person could get the accreditation that they need to move up to a 3 at some time. There was some discussion with how it affects the union and contracts and everything else. It wasn't really fatal of anything, but it's just questions arised on that. There was nothing really earth-shattering. It made sense to me. We just sat in for the first time in a personnel committee in a long time, and it was an opportunity to fill the position that's been vacant. And like I say, of all the issues they have with helping people service the whole curriculum of what's going on there, a mental health professional is definitely sorely needed in all aspects of our life here. So the recommendation coming out of there was to approve the reclassification of a mental health professional social worker 3 to a social worker 2 position. With that, I make a motion to approve the minutes, the recommendation.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Commissioner Potter, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Potter, for filling in for me. Appreciate it.
And
Okay.
Madam Chair, he throws me a softball on this one. This one's pretty simple.
That's why I figured I'd let you do it.
I think I could handle this one.
All right. If there's no more discussion, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Raul votes aye.
All right, thank you. And the CARES Act and Commissioner Potter also will highlight this for us.
Madam Chair, you're picking on me today.
You offered.
That's right, I did offer self-inflicted, that's correct. The Committee of the Whole met on July 14th. All the commissioners were there. Commissioner Brown was not available at that time. He had some personnel issues to deal with. And there was a lot of staff that was present. Basically, this committee had to deal with what the CARES Act overview of that, what's going on. The county will receive $16.5 million of federal funding for expenditures that will incur to COVID-19. The staff started putting together this information. The county participates in townships will not have the expenses that qualify for CARES here. There's a separate deal for them. Considerations of what we need to do and bring a consultant in to assist with the interpretation and guidance of this CARES Act, because as I stated at the meeting, that, okay, we take it in good faith, we spend it in good faith, and on the back end, all of a sudden, we have a problem because somebody doesn't agree with how it was spent. And bring a consultant in to help us guide and navigate through this, I think, is important. And Mr. Kelly went on to say he believes that 3 or 4 buckets of money and identified he felt would be appropriate levels of funding. county at 7 million, economic development at 2 million, affiliates, community partners at 3 million, school districts at 4.6 based on enrollment of students. And thank you, Commissioner Vetch, for starting that ball rolling with the school part, because that was a big nut to crack in this deal here. The concept of the board was the agreement with this additional discussions take place, and we have put out for bids for having people help guide us through it. We have 3 people that are there. Discussions in the creation of teams to assist in the process here, because each area has their knowledge base of what they need to get through this. And the whole thing was, the board meeting the 21st, we can make a decision on today, but who we're going to use for this. We had the proposals come before us, and they're all pretty decent. They all have their strengths and weaknesses on that. So the recommendation coming in out of that meeting was the funding level of county 7 million, economic development 2, affiliates 3, school districts 4.2, charter schools a couple $100,000 came out. That's it. And the selection of the consultant will be done at this meeting. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendations.
All right, motion made by.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just because on the notes from the presentation there, we had, it was 4.4 on the schools and then 200,000, because it was 4.6 at the top, and I think it somewhere got, because we moved, that we took 200,000 out. Yep. To the, so just on the recommendations, it was 200 to the charter schools and 4.4 to the school districts. And that's where that holds the 4.6.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. You read the minutes right, but they were just in the.
There was a
yep.
typo.
There's a typo, yep.
Did you second it?
I'll second it, yes.
Okay.
I just was with that modification.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Potter. Or excuse me, Burrell.
Yes, I did have a question. I was not able to attend the meeting, but these are like kind of proposed. They're not set in concrete yet or anything, because if we did have some changes that might come forth, would we be able to reallocate this from one body to another?
Madam Chair, can I answer the question?
Sure.
You basically, at this point, all the money in the economic development affiliates and the county funds, basically that $12 million is just put in pails. It hasn't been sent out. The only money that will be sent out would be the school district money that would be sent out, that would be unable to be reallocated.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
After we
Okay.
promise, essentially promise the schools how much we're going to give them per student, then, that would be something, but we haven't met with any affiliates. We haven't gotten any applications essentially from, economic development or the affiliates to, really,
Okay.
it's going to be an application process essentially.
I am aware of a proposal that would possibly be coming forward. Matter of fact, probably be coming forward. But then the other thing with the school district, there's also strict guidelines on how the money can be used.
Yes.
What if they don't use the money? I mean, we have till November 1st. We have to figure out whether it's going to be feasible for every school district, or like I said, if there was somebody else that might be able to use it, yeah.
And we are meeting with the superintendents this afternoon at 1:30 to spell out some of these details and that kind of thing. But yes, it's very specific, what the money can be used for, and that applies across the board, whether it's at county or city, township, school, whatever, all the levels. We have to meet the guidelines. But Commissioner Vetch, did you have a comment?
Right now, the intent, Commissioner Burrell, is that they will be submitting their expenses in, and we will be sending it out as that. So if whatever they don't use up, we will have a pretty good idea of by mid-November, so it can be reallocated if they're not, or we could at least follow up with them that, hey, you submit your expenses now, or we're going to reallocate the funds.
Right.
So.
But I thought it had to be spent by November 1st.
I think December
15th. 10th or
So,
15th.
yeah, it's,
Madam Chair?
yes, Commissioner.
We got an email from Jamie this morning, and their amount that they're requesting now has gone down a little bit. It's at a little over 3.6 million. And they've got it spelled out on what those different things are going to be for. But one of the other things that Commissioner Vetch, I don't think you mentioned, regarding the townships have a certain time frame, and then they have to return that money back to the county.
Yep.
Correct.
And then that money can be reallocated at that point too.
And there's about $850,000 out there roughly, between all the townships. And then there's any unallocated funds from the municipalities also come back here. So there's potentially about $1 million that, in that range, that could be, or less, but could be
Depends
potentially.
on how much the cities use for economic development themselves.
I wouldn't expect much from the cities, but I would say the townships are gonna have a hard time probably spending down all of that.
And certainly with, some of these affiliates, just throwing out functional industries or, some of these affiliates out there, have great need. So I don't think that we'd have a problem reallocating if more funds come in, but this is all new to us, no question, and that's why we're going to be talking about a consultant here in a little bit, because we want to make sure that we do everything correctly and we have all of our accounting in place, so we're right on board. All right. Any more discussion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Burrell, are you comfortable with, we basically created these buckets just to kind of get a high-level idea of what we're going to basically break the funding down into, so that way we broke into separate groups then that we can kind of talk about, from affiliates, where we can talk about your Wright County community actions and your functional industries, and from an economic development standpoint where we can look at chambers of commerce's, small business loan grants, things of that nature. So it kind of breaks it out into kind of small separate work groups.
It makes it more manageable in our way of thinking and distributing money. So.
Okay. No, I'm okay with it for right now. I think there is enough flexibility built into it, as I see.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Mr.
Yeah, and the
Wright.
other reason was the schools need it as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Because if they're gonna do remote, they need to get computers and softwares or tablets and softwares out in the hands of a lot of the students that don't have access to it, and
And
yeah, create the hotspots. So it's gonna be a challenge. I'm glad I don't have any kids in school right now.
well, and the schools, I mean, they probably can give us right now, a list of what they've spent. So that could be covered with this too, because they've, had to buy a lot of hotspots and Chromes for everyone, and so there's a lot of money that's been spent. So it will definitely help them. But, all right, if there's no more discussion, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Oh,
We're all both sides.
All right.
And one thing I
Thank
do
you.
want to know, Madam Chair, and I should have done this earlier in the notes, just so people, if they read these minutes, the per pupil allocation funding is still fluid at this point. So that 27,715 student count is just a rough count, but having some communication with some of the superintendents, it's close, but it's probably not the solidified number. So that was the number that was used to break out to that per pupil amount. So I just want to make sure that they understand that that's not the certified number
Yeah.
that we will be actually using.
Right, we'll actually get that certified number by
Yeah.
soon.
I just want to make sure somehow that we note that that's just a high-level number.
Yep, thank you. All right. And then we move on to the workshop and Commissioner Vetch.
So the county board met in workshop on July 14th. Discussed a number of items. We did some scheduling, and we discussed the CARES Act Committee of the Whole, which you just read, and we also scheduled a meeting for this afternoon at 1:30 with superintendents. Then we also went into the audit exit with the Clifton Larson Allen, and they gave us a good bill of health overall. They did find some more, as always, there's always some minor deficiencies that are within the system. Most of them are material mistakes, missing some information, some things aren't signed, things of those natures. We did go over the fund balance, and the fund balance is still healthy. Slight decline, but which is expected as you increase your budgets. Fund balance can tend to decline at that point. Revenues are below expenditures, which is also a kind of common theme when you're doing construction projects, as bonded funds do not count as revenue. So That was basically informational only in regards to the audit exit. We also then went into a discussion over the Health Partners Clinic. This is an employee clinic that would be in the new government center. This was a planned piece in the construction. It was just more to bring up the discussion as we move forward. We will be entering into a contract potentially with Health Partners in the future 6 to 9 months as we come closer to opening up the new government center. It was more of informational to get us up to speed as to what the services would be, what the hours potentially would be, and what the costs are associated with it, and what the potential savings are to the county as a whole and to the employees of the county from a benefits standpoint. That is also informational only. Then we also went over the 5-year highway improvement plan. The recommendation was to proceed with the update of the 5-year highway improvement plan for 2021 to 2025. Very short presentation. The other part of it is the County Road 147 jurisdictional transfer public hearing. We requested approval to schedule a public hearing for County Road 147 jurisdictional change on September 1st, 2020 at Rockford Township Hall and on September 14th at Buffalo Township Hall. Recommendation authorized the following public hearings, which were just stated. Then the next is we went into a presentation from the Central Mississippi Regional Planning Partnership. We, as part of our bylaws for the CMRP, is that we do regular updates and then pass a resolution of understanding that all elected bodies that are participating are up to speed and concur with the direction that the organization is going. So that resolution will be coming forward after the minutes. Then we also went into a discussion of office space evaluation. As departments exit this building, we had a discussion about, is there any necessity to move departments within the building to give them short-term relief in terms of operational or just space needs? It was discussed that we would look at this on a case-by-case basis if it could be done in a cost-effective manner. More to come on that, but the overall recommendation was do not proceed with repurposing vacant office space at the existing government center at this time. So if you can move into the space as is, we were okay with it. Then lastly, we had a discussion with the bonding in the dental clinic. The decision was to go forward with getting a construction contract with the construction manager. So the recommendation was that Alan Wilczek, Facilities Services Director, to get cost estimates on the build-out of the dental center for Contegrity Group and to add a build-out of the dental clinic and the cost of construction management services to the current Contegrity Group contract. So find out what it's going to cost to build this and then what it would cost to add that space onto the contract with Contegrity. With that, I think I got through the workshop minutes.
Yeah, it was,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and recommendations.
I'll second it.
right.
And Madam Chair?
Yes,
I understand that the House and Senate have gone home and the bonding bill did not pass.
That's correct.
So I'm assuming they'll be called back in August again, August 13th. Hopefully they'll get something accomplished, although I was really surprised we did get one thing done regarding the banning chokeholds. I think that was about it.
The police reform compromise.
Yeah, chokeholds are one other thing regarding that. I think that was the only thing that they did.
It was some other law enforcement issues, but it wasn't really solidified. It was kind of an overview, high overarching procedural changes in, I don't know if it's recruitment or whatever. I haven't read the details of it yet. And Madam Chair, to go on with that, the people I talked to down there said the problem came as when the House leader, Senate Minority Leader, and the governor went and changed a few things that they'd all agreed on before and kept the Republicans out of the whole conversation, came back, here it is, and that's where the rub came in. What did come out of the Ways and Means Committee before that was approved and this was rubbing the Republicans wrong already because they had some things in there, but they had a lot of things that were left out. That's the page report of the bottom where it came out of Ways and Means. And then there was some grandstanding down in Henderson about the flood road and the $4.6 million-ish going there, going, you know, you got a road with what, 1,200 cars a day, and spend 4.6, and here you're arguing about spending a couple $1 million over on a road that has 20,000 people a day. There were some, the word is skullduggery or some backroom antics going on there. It's too bad they had to spoil it like that, but hopefully when they come back in August, they'll do it. But the thing was with yesterday's deadline was to get it approved then because that was in time for an August bond sale. And now that they've missed that, that means all these projects are going to be delayed for about a year. Everything that was on here that would have been able to get going forward next year, probably going to be a year out.
Okay, we better get back to the minutes. We got a little off, we got a little away from the minutes here to get them
Yeah,
approved if we
but
want
some
more
of it just
discussion.
need to get
Right, I know.
out.
Yeah, I agree. It's good discussion. It's good to get that information out there. I just want to go back before I lose track and we move on and we don't approve these, so. All right.
Is that a motion?
All right.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Potter to approve the minutes and recommendations from the workshop. Any more discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
One more item. Let the citizens of Wright County know that we have another clean audit. Kind of a habit in Wright County, have clean audit, and that the hats off to all the departments that have submitted the thing, and the treasurer's office for putting together, and it's just like it was, the process is going through. What they find is minor things, like 3 people should be counting the same penny when we only have 2. You know, things like that, but everything else financially stable, good clean audit. There's nothing, no financial malfeasance or anything like that going on here. So the citizens of Wright County should be proud of how this is being handled.
All right. Any comments, Charlie, or questions?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. All right. Then we will have a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All votes aye.
All right. The minutes and recommendations pass. All right. Our next set of minutes, Commissioner DeLayden.
Is the sheriff going to be back in, or? No. Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure before I proceeded with this, so that he can correct me, but I'm assuming you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Committee of Hold met on remotely for 3 of us and on site for 2 on July 15th. Regarding the sheriff's color organization, a staffing study that was done by
Baker Tilly.
Baker Tilly. Sorry, they keep changing names, I couldn't remember. That was done at the board's request. A couple things that came out of it was a number of different positions that it was suggested that they had. The 2 that were requested was a training lieutenant coordinator and a CID sergeant. And we had discussions regarding the different positions and where the money was going to come from, and job descriptions and appointed and all that sort of stuff. So, and they also gave us an idea on additional positions that they would be asking for in 2021. The recommendations, and this can all be read with the funding requirements and stuff. The recommendations were approve hiring the training lieutenant coordinator position here in 2020. Direct human resources and the sheriff's office to develop a draft job description for the proposed office administrator position, which is now classified as a business manager. And the CID sergeant position request will be reviewed in 30 to 60 days, once we get a better idea on funding and where everything's going to end up for the year. With that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendations.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Delight, seconded by Commissioner Potter. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Potter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was, I thought it was a really good discussion on the needs of the Sheriff's Department, things going on today. The hiring of a training lieutenant, I think is imperative. I mean, it was one of those things that was, in my opinion, has been identified before, but kind of put on the shelf for a while. But now with everything else going on between the civil unrest and everything, a lot of changes here. I think it's in Wright County's best interest to get ahead of this and get somebody that's in charge of this, because other counties have it already. And you need one person that owns the training part of this. So you can't have it by committee, because that's where the problems lie. This way, I think this is very important position to get in there, because with all the requirements and the new ones coming down the pike that we don't even know about yet, this will make it so we'll be handling that fine. And as far as the other one, the human resources develop a job description and propose office administrator versus a business manager. Anybody who's dealt with Shauna, she's been a godsend for us here at the county on communications and everything else, so is with the auditor treasurer's office and everything going on, and definitely acts more like an administrator than just an office manager. And I believe wholeheartedly that that is the correct way to classify that position. The other ones have a review request in 30 to 60 days, which was a reasonable for us to get a handle on what all this means. And I'm happy with how the meeting turned out, and open, frank discussions about how to do this after the Baker-Tilly report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam,
Yes, Commissioner Delight.
The other thing that I believe that training lieutenant, due to the fact that we now have a training facility that is in conjunction with the FBI, we are going to need to have somebody that can help coordinate that sort of information and what FBI will providing for training, and whether or not that's useful for our deputies and that sort of stuff. So I think that's going to be very important to have somebody that owns it and is going to be able to work with them for timing.
And certainly over the years, the training requirements have increased from the state. It gets more complex, and when you're tracking, 150 or plus, deputies, and they have to have, 48 credits every 3 years, plus, has to be mental health, and they have, different trainings that they need to comply with, plus not, their shooting and their defensive tactics and that kind of thing. So it is important to get someone that can track all of that and keep it straight, because if you have a few people, things get lost in the shuffle, and all of a sudden, you find out that somebody maybe didn't get the credits that they need, and you sort of push at the end. So yeah, it's I think it's a good move.
Madam Chair,
Move forward. Yes, Commissioner.
I think it's worth noting that this lieutenant position is budget neutral. My thanks to Shauna and her work on looking at the fund balance and the permits to carry, and instead of using the administrative costs from the general fund, she's going to actualize more of it from the permits to carry that we are using to administer that, because we can do that by law, and because the fund balance is so well, we're not putting in any risk, therefore frees up some general fund money for this training lieutenant, basically at no new cost to citizens of the county.
Thank you for bringing that out, pointing that out. Yes. All right. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 We all vote aye.
All right, so the minutes and the recommendations from the 15th meeting are approved. Moving on to our resolution for
Resolution of understanding.
Central Minnesota Mississippi Planning Partnership Framework.
So, Madam Chair, I will make a motion of a resolution of understanding from the CMRP group, going back to the workshop, the presentation that I was able to walk everyone through. Hope everybody, I think based on the recommendation, everybody's kind of in concurrence with the direction we're going.
Motion made by Commissioner Vett.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Potter. Is there any discussion on this?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The way the world is now with this is one of the beginning steps of getting that framework to get 2030. Because if you want to cross a river, that is very a high mountain to climb. All you got to do is look at the Stillwater Bridge, 40 years. That was beyond ridiculous to go that long. Have all the partners in it, and hats off to Commissioner Vetch for taking that next stride there. Let's get this going so we have all the partners there and try to knock down some of those barriers to keep us from getting this done. That river crossing up there, wherever it ends up being, is imperative to both counties, not only Wright but Sherburne County's health in the next 20 years, being that river crossing is already past capacity today. Get a river crossing, it's like 2030 might be a little aggressive, but you gotta aim high, and you gotta keep going on. There are talks at the federal level to try to streamline that permitting process. Because right now, the way it seems that one entity gets a bite at the apple, and then the other ones wait until they're done, and then they take a bite, and that's what strings it out. They're gonna try to make it so they all have to have the same bite at the apple at the same time, to try to hopefully streamline this out. And I'm looking forward to the hearings on that, and if that comes to fruition where there's hearings, then I hope that Commissioner Vetch will be able to go out there and testify as need be there, because this is real important, because we should never have to repeat 40 years of Stillwater Bridge again. That's just past ridiculous.
Madam Chair, and I appreciate you putting that out there, Commissioner Potter, just because it's a lot of it's managing expectations, because in all likelihood, you and I both know that 2030, and it was a hard thing when we were trying to name this project. I was more about let's framework 2040, but unfortunately I lost out on it. They did framework 2030. I think you're setting expectations a little bit too high. I'm rather set them the other way and come in better, but especially at the pace we're moving right now, I don't think we'll be having a bridge by 2030 in any likelihood.
Yeah, unless things start falling into place.
Maybe,
You can
hopefully.
always hope, but anyway. All right, any more discussion?
Madam Chair, one more item. Commissioner Vetch, he's right on that. It might be a lofty goal, but you got to charge hard, and you got to let them know. And hopefully by 2030, a lot of the framework fundamental pieces have been changed to make it easier to get that. Because right now, if you start the process right now, this 2020, 2060, you'd get the crossing based on past performance, and that's just not acceptable here. And hopefully by 2030, it might not be construction, but if we can get all the pieces in place where it's a lot quicker to get that answer, I mean, that's the goal, is to get this done quickly. Hopefully by 2040, it's done. In best world scenario, hopefully 2030, we can get the construction start going. But you got to keep on the process, because there's just so many moving parts and so many different agencies that chime in on this, that it's mind-boggling, the things you have to go through and all the things on the checklist to get this done. And a person doesn't realize that until they're knee-deep in it. They go, oh my Lord, you mean I got the Bald Eagle Act, I got to do that, the Snail Darters Association, it's beyond ridiculous crazy what you got to do it. And it's good, because in this next 10 years, these are all these little things you got to check off to get to that.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
thank you, Delight. Commissioner Delight.
Actually, I think the timing all of a sudden turned out good with what's going on down in between, what is it, Elk River and Anoka or Coon Rapids, where they're looking at another bridge crossing. So I think it'll bring the highlight on what the issues are with crossing the bridge in multiple locations, because they realize it's an issue down there. If it's an issue down there, it may help bring this forward too, that it's also a problem up in Wright County. So it may be beneficial to everybody.
Good.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Potter.
thank you, Madam Chair. And with Commissioner Delight's comment, the one crossing down by Dayton there has a little problem. The city of Dayton doesn't want it there. Oliver Kelly Farm, it's in there. They've had problems with that in the past, and there's no consensus on both sides of the river where to put it. And they haven't taken the steps to make this partnership like this, to get there. As long as there's that divisiveness on both sides, nothing's gonna happen.
Which, again, brings it an opportunity maybe out farther. So I think it's a good timing.
It's the correct way to do it, and this is how you get a successful river
Yep.
crossing.
Oh, I agree.
More to come going forward,
Yep.
so.
Absolutely.
All right. No more discussion, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 For all both sides.
All right. Resolution passes, and thank you for all your work, Commissioner Fetch. Okay, moving on to the CARES Act discussion, and Administrator Kelly, we've gotten some proposals from a few firms for looking at being a consultant for us during this process of distributing these dollars, large amount of dollars.
Yeah, I can speak to that. We had a follow-up item from the workshop to go out and find firms that might be able to assist us with the CARES Act. We've identified 3 firms that the county's worked with previously, Baker Tilly Ellers and Clifton Larson Allen. We've used them in different capacities over the past years and have kind of continuing relationships with them. So did submit those to you. Kind of each, I think, of the proposals has its own strengths in certain areas, and others provide different services. They kind of laid out various services that could be provided, whether it's interpreting and monitoring, the guidance as it comes out, helping to monitor any subgrantees. One of them actually provides an online grant module that we could leverage for tracking with applicants, and they could also assist us with developing application documents and governing as we go forward. So most of the proposals, as you saw, submitted an hourly rate. We did talk with a couple of the firms about entertaining a not-to-exceed figure, which they were open to, but really we would have to limit our scope a little bit or define our scope in order to go forward. So as I mentioned, all 3 of those firms we have worked with before. Ellers, in my discussion with them, really focuses on more of the guidance, interpretation, and kind of the risk assessment of the proposals that we'd put in our funding plan. Clifton Larson Allen, of course, is our auditor that we've used for a number of years. So they certainly would have, I guess, a bit of a leg up in the financial area and could potentially assist in more in the single audit area. Baker Tilly, we have used them for a couple studies that we've done recently. I think they may have the most comprehensive list of services. They have an online portal, which may be interesting for us to have. So I guess with that, I'll open up the floor for any questions that you may have, Board.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Glyden.
Yeah, the one thing you had mentioned there regarding monitoring updates and stuff for the CARES Act, anybody that doesn't do that for us, which that has to be in there, because we know there's going to be refinements and updates and changes, and for whoever works with us has to be aware of those and has to pass that information on to the county. So that's, to me, that one's not an option. That has to be there.
Yeah, that's really baseline level of service, I think, for this proposal.
Absolutely. As far as the cost and that sort of stuff, I agree, Baker Tilly probably has the most overall comprehensive. I'm concerned on what the cost is going to be, especially with the hourly rates that they've dictated, and I don't know who they're going to use for certain things, because there's some major changes and major difference in hourly rates, depending on who does what. I mean, they would definitely provide us with the most comprehensive and hands-off, I think, results for us and work.
Yeah, and would their online portal actually be, cheaper in the long run? I don't know. But I guess that I'm probably most comfortable with either Ellers or Clifton Larson Allen. You wonder about, since Clifton Larson Allen is our auditor, is there a conflict? But there is at least one other county that has, is using them for the CARES Act, so that's a potential too. They certainly know their stuff, and everything we've done with Ellers, that they've just been top notch in their guidance, and I don't know.
Madam Chair, I guess my biggest question is, I guess I don't know how, I know Baker Tilly is going after a lot of these contracts. And my concern about them is being lost in the shuffle. Same with Clifton Larson Allen. And then with the fact that they do our audit, I'm a little bit concerned that it might get messy on the back end there, as well as the fact that they're also going after a lot of these same management contracts. Not quite sure how that looks. But Ellers, I don't know that they're necessarily, this is like their bread and butter that they're looking to get into, but I'm questioning whether they'd be willing to help us work on some sort of a tracking mechanism. I guess it's something more of a conversation that I'd want to have with them about next level services that they're going to, be able to provide for us. I guess I need a little bit more information before I would want to solidify that contract. I'm leaning towards Ellers, but I want to make sure that we can get a few I's dotted and T's crossed in terms of what our needs are and whether they're actually going to be able to facilitate them.
And it may not, I mean, a lot of work is going to be done here at the county, and it'll be, most of it, I think, is just to make sure that we're doing everything correctly. And, I mean, it's so big that we just can't handle this all ourselves. I mean, administration is swamped. I mean, we're all swamped now. It's budget time too. So, like I said, I certainly trust that Ellers would do a fine job for us. But you're right. I would guess that they could. I shouldn't say that, but I would believe that they could come up with a good tracking system. I mean, that's they're in the numbers world all the time. So,
Madam Chair?
yes.
Maybe we need to take one step back and figure out exactly what do we want? What do we need to get accomplished? What are the actual things that we want somebody to do for us? And then we could get a better idea on a price for everything, from, however you want to do it, the budget number and stuff. I do concern Baker Tilly being a very large company and national, that we could get lost in the shuffle.
Right, and we certainly
We've experienced that before.
we've experienced major delays with Baker Tilly,
So.
and this
but-
would not be the time to be
Yeah,
delayed.
but, in all honesty, before we choose somebody, I think we need to define exactly what we want, or what we are actually gonna have to have.
Well, I mean, a lot of the high-level things that we need to have is we need to have expenditure approval, basically making sure that the expenditures meet the letter of the law. We have to have an application coordination. We also need to have expenditure tracking and auditing. Those are kind of the four main features that we have to have.
Yep,
So what we need to do is define whether or not Ellers or Clifton are, how they're gonna plan on doing that. And what I would suggest is that the chair and the coordinator or county administrator and Derek or whoever wants to, meet or talk with those guys and first off, figure out exactly what we want, and then find out from them how they're planning on doing this sort of stuff.
right. If they're positioned and to do it, and if they are able to, work it into their workload.
But I think you need to define exactly what you want, and then talk to them about it, and how are they planning on doing it, instead of choosing somebody and then we're hoping that they're gonna be able to do what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, they're pretty engaged with the letter they sent, but I think that's fine. We wanted to try to, if the board is okay with that, Administrator Kelly, maybe you could reach out to, are we leaning toward getting information from Ellers first, as opposed to the other
Well,
two
I mean, I
entities?
guess I'm in the side of it from a dollars aspect and a continuity and the level of service that I've gotten in the past, I'm leaning towards going with Ellers, but I do have my red flags that I do want to have a conversation. If they can make those concerns, if they can mitigate those concerns, I would be inclined to want to move forward with them. But I guess without having that conversation to kind of have them walk me through what those expenditure approvals, that application process, coordination looks like, and then the accounting and auditing.
And that's what I was, getting at, that if the board approves, you and me and Administrator Kelly to meet with them prior to our next board meeting, so we can, kind of get going on this.
Yeah, and financial too. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
again,
whoever, right, I mean,
Heather or
you know,
Bob or
right,
whoever.
yeah.
what
Yep.
we're gonna,
right,
the whole thing with this was that we don't really have a lot of manpower that we can spend a lot of time on
No.
it. So that's why
right,
I think you really need to define what we want them to do, what we're expecting them to do for us, and what we can do in-house. And if we, and that's what we have to define first before we can talk to them, I think. So, and that's why I think, just having a small group try and figure it out, especially with administration and auditor's office.
Is, go ahead.
yeah. Bob, you want to step up to the mic?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the concerns I have is, we have to do the financial reporting. So whoever we select, we're hoping that they're going to work with us and guide us on how to properly report it. The federal grant is coming to Wright County, not to our partners here. So we're hoping that whoever we go with, I think leg up would be Clifton Larson Allen. They already know how to report this. But again, it's what services are we looking for? I think that's a good question. When you identified those pools of funds, that gave us more of an indication of what we're going to ask the provider to help us with. But we can for sure clarify that even more.
And I would suggest that you don't just limit your conversation with
Eller?
Ellers, that you also talk with Clifton now.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
again,
Yep.
if you don't, I would say at those points, because those are both, much more experience with us. If you're not happy with those, then you move on to Baker Tilly, or unless there's another company out there that comes up all of a sudden. But I really think we need to define what we need, and again, that's gonna have to be a smaller committee to try and figure that out. And between auditors and administrations, they're the ones that are gonna have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis, or however it's gonna end up, and whether or not they have the personnel to deal with it.
And the interesting aspect of this thing is the accounting and the auditing of it. I think Clifton Larson Allen is going to be top notch for that. The expenditure approval piece, which is a large part of what we're going to need when dealing with the affiliates and dealing with an economic development standpoint, is where I think Ellers would really shine in terms of giving us what we can and cannot do. So,
Right.
And maybe what we do is we split it.
Yeah,
Maybe
is there a hybrid of it that we can,
So again, that's why I think you really need to figure out what it is that we really need to have accomplished, and what we can do internally and what we can't do, and we're gonna have to figure it out in that respect.
yes, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Vetch did hit the main highlights of what we're looking for, and those are important discussion points. And if Ellers, which I trust that they're a good company, if they can provide all these things, then I would lean towards them. But if there's some flags or issues that cannot be concerned, then I'd say move on to the next. But I do support, and I do like the fact that the chair, Commissioner Vetch, administration, and Auditor Treasurer's office get some background information for us to come back with, because for all five of us to try to meet with this, we're not going to get too far. It would be too cumbersome. I agree with Commissioner Vetch. There are certain pillars we need to get to. Ask the questions, hard questions there. Boom, boom. You're either in or out. You're out. Move on to the next.
Yep.
And come up with a recommendation for us so we can move forward.
Or there might be something, you talk about the four, but there might be something that administration or auditors or those people will come back
Right.
with and say,
Yeah.
well, what about this? This is, so that's why I really like to just have you guys go into a deeper
Well-
conversation with them.
Looking at our calendars,
Well,
what
I-
are we thinking, you know?
Yeah, and that.
He's gonna have to reach out to them to find out.
But
But I mean, do we meet ahead of time before we
Oh, to
talk?
determine
That's
out
what I'm
what-
saying, what, you know, if we're gonna determine what our needs are, essentially.
Well-
But do we even know what all our needs are?
And I don't know, I would say, you know, Commissioner Batch has come up with, what, 4 pillars you said there? And again, you know, I would think if you sat down and talked with the auditor administration, they may agree with just those 4, or they may say this, this, and this, or something too, I don't know.
We get the,
But I would say, you know,
All right,
for you
let's,
guys to figure out what works.
well, is your recommendation, do you think, Administrator Kelly, we should just meet as a group and lay that out before we meet with Ellers and Clifton Larson Allen?
Yeah, I think our group here, obviously, we've identified the buckets, and that is going to kind of drive the discussion. I think Commissioner Vetch did have a good overview. That said, I think we want to ask the same wide-ranging gamut of questions to both groups, because I do think there's going to be strengths in each of them in certain areas. And maybe we do end up with a hybrid on this, potentially, where we would have Ellers maybe as the advisor, the risk assessment piece, and maybe we'd have Clifton as the financial tracking piece. I don't want to rule out that option
Yeah, that's
as well, but maybe if they're able to present their front-to-back proposal based on our few highlights, because I do think, as we discussed, that, you know, the monitoring or the guidance, that's really a baseline thing. You know, the assessment of projects, I think we have the buckets that we've laid out. I know that Human Services has provided us a list of entities and expenditures that they're anticipating. They've already expended and will into the future. We have a number of costs that we've already identified. So we kind of have that list. It's just if we need more, some of these, I don't want to say gray areas, but to weigh that against the guidance would be helping. And then I think we need to talk through the logistics, the mechanics of tracking this is a big piece of it to me. Again, I think we have staff that definitely have the knowledge, but I just feel like it's a manpower issue. We don't have enough hands to do the work potentially, so.
Well, again, I
Madam
still
Chair.
think there's Saturdays and Sundays, so I don't know what their deals are.
And Madam Chair, and this is probably something I can talk with you offline, Administrator Kelly, but a lot of it was like, I guess we needed to determine a hard and fast process from the request for funds to application to the narrative to the approval process to then the expending or to the execution of the funds and then the auditing aspect.
Right.
I guess, and I feel like until we develop that policy, I think it's hard for necessarily Clifton Larson Allen, Baker Tilly, or Ellers to basically be able to say, yes, we can facilitate that, or no. And then the question is, do we modify how we want to go about the approval process and the auditing and the execution of the expense to meet their standards? I don't know.
Sure.
I-
Yeah, that's a very good point, and that's not only for the sub-grantees or external expenditures, but mechanics-wise, I almost think we have to set up our internal expenditures almost like a capital projects. We have a budget assigned to it, and you just track it through that way. But again, that depending on how this is going to need to be audited, there might be aspects that the vendor would want to chime in too. So.
And I think this discussion this afternoon at 1:30 is going to give us a little bit better of an idea of what their expectations from the school is in terms of a management piece, and that's going to maybe give us a little bit better direction to develop that policy. But I think we have to start at least developing our policy and then running it by whether it's Clifton Larson Allen and Ellers and say, what do you think?
Or both,
Or both, yep.
you know, especially if you're gonna look at a hybrid. But, Madam Chair, would you like a motion to have this move forward?
With that motion, I want to make sure that you would clarify, do you want then just to have, if, once the chair or whatever, whoever is approved of it, that Lee can sign off on it? Or do you want to hold off till next Tuesday to make a final approval on it?
You mean as far as,
Contracting with somebody?
Kind of a
Because, I mean, I'm hoping that we're going to get somebody within the next 7 days, but if not, because we need to get
No,
somebody.
I mean, I understand that part. The time is of the essence.
Yeah.
so to sit down and create a policy, I guess, that's something that is the board comfortable with that if we develop a policy, or does that need to be, I mean, you're saying, the policy
I don't
of
think
how
that-
we execute it, it's not specifically, you're thinking more like, a worksheet of steps as opposed to a policy?
Yeah, it's like it's an internal controls is
Yeah.
what it is for the management of the funds. It's, that piece is more just creating that as hypothetical to get some feedback in terms of whether Clifton Larson Allen or Ellers is the best match for us on that. Not to say that that policy is hard, fast, and stone. That internal control could come back to the board at a later date once we contract to somebody. But the biggest thing is using that as kind of an interviewing piece to understand if they're going to be able to best fit with us to manage those steps.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Potter?
Thank you. I concur that, you know, if the committee that's formed to do this has a clear-cut winner, boy, this is the one that hits checks all the boxes. That I have no problem with going forward and starting that, but if there's, you know, if the confusion division, you say it's either A or B, we really can't make our mind up which one, then bring it back to the board. But if you can come with a clear-cut winner that this one really makes sense, I'm in agreement to go ahead and get the process started.
So-
Because, you know, I think both of you know the questions we need to ask and what we need to, and you'll be able to know whether company A, B, or C can hit all those buttons. And if they,
Or the hybrid.
or a hybrid,
Yeah.
you know, and you come back with that, and if you find something that's clear cut, just go with it. Just get this thing moving, because another week, 2 weeks out, pretty soon, we're really behind the 8 ball on this.
Yeah, we're hot and heavy in budget process besides. Commissioner Burrell, are you comfortable with us exploring this option as a small committee and figuring out our steps and basically worksheets of what we need to go forward with the distribution of the CARES Act funds?
Yeah, that seems to make sense.
So when would be a time, or should we just?
I mean, it doesn't have to be a formalized committee. I think we can meet at just any discretionary
Right.
time. I don't think it's.
We'll just
make a
talk
motion
after. We'll just
To
talk after.
proceed with it,
Yep.
to make a decision if you guys can come up with a clear-cut winner on it, if there's discussion regarding who's who, to come back to the board. But I would like to have it put back on the agenda for next week
Right.
for discussion, so that
Yeah.
the rest of the board can find out what questions were asked and, you know, a little bit of
Fair enough.
No.
I'll second that.
The board definitely needs to be very involved with this, so.
In Madam Chair, and I think in all likelihood, it's going to be still a horse race for us to actually get this done yet this week, but at least gives us the ability if it's possible. Because I think from creating some of these business loan programs and stuff, and to be able to get it distributed, a application process put it forth at that point, we're really got to get rolling here, because
Yep,
at the rate we're going right now, we will hardly be able to get any money to Wright County Economic Development Partnership till maybe mid-August at the rate we're going right
yeah,
now.
for sure.
But
All right, so-
I have a feeling everybody's in the same boat, and I think there's gonna be, again, some changes with the CARES Act, just because
Timing.
it's so cumbersome, it's timing, you know, it's just, what they're asking for is a unicorn.
Yeah.
All right, so a motion made by Commissioner Delight, seconded by Commissioner Potter to move forward with the small group to come up with guidelines, et cetera. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Ralph votes aye.
Okay. So we will, we'll talk after and get some times worked out. All right, well, we have about 10 minutes, so let's kind of, if we can kind of move through our advisory committee updates, a little summarize quickly.
Oh, where do I start and where do I stop? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
I-94, yesterday our chair and a couple sat in with a MnDOT meeting, federally with Sean Poole, David Carroll from Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, to go. We didn't get the build grant last fall, but they're working on a new one for this spring. We're trying to get that for that stretch from Hillsville to Monticello on 94. That's the last little segment we got to get done. At noon, they talked with Senator Stina Smith, and I haven't gotten a briefing of what was discussed there. And Wednesday, they'll be talking with Congressman Phillips and Congressman Emmer, the next build grant, and then also later on that day, Senator Klobuchar with her staff member there. That's 94, so it's kind of like it's all up in the air there. We're gonna keep working towards the federal build grant, because we don't know if they're actually gonna get a state bonding bill done. Also, in this capital budget that went through Ways and Means, didn't specifically spell out I-94, but it specifically spelled out a whole lot of other projects. So there was concern whether it made the cut if it's part of that thing. Okay, moving on, the Transportation Alliance, which we had a meeting last Monday down in St. Paul, and it was about the things going on, the lack of movement on the state level, but the federal level, there seems to be movement on the infrastructure part of it. We still plan on having our fly-in for September 21st through the 23rd this year. That got moved from June until now because of that, but all the meetings have been set up for virtual, like the remote virtual close to that, with all the concerns with all the state of Minnesota there, and like say 25, 55, and 94 definitely are going to be subjects that are going to be talked about with my part of the deal here. The next thing is the Trailblazer. I attended that meeting, and now the cat is out of the bag. Mayor Castle accepted a job with the Lowe's Corporation. And so far as working remote, he might be able to finish off his term at the through the year, but he might not. Depends if they call him back to North Carolina to work. But so far he's working remotely. So with that being said, the last couple of meetings that I've been at the Trailblazer meeting, I truly thank Mayor Castle for being there and helping smooth it. The gentleman is a fantastic negotiator, knows how to smooth out the rough edges and that, and he will be missed when he's no longer there. But I attended the Trailblazer Joint Powers meeting last Thursday down in Glencoe. It's a nice scenic drive, and we all know that. Okay, talked about the CARES Act. A blessing came out of this. The CARES Act that's coming for, as far as transit goes, is being handled by MnDOT. Thank goodness for that, because if we had to handle it, no matter what we did, we'd be wrong. This way, we're out of the picture, MnDOT's in, and that to be good. I like that because MnDOT taking the lead. There's one less layer that we have to deal with, and I'm getting that taken care of. And Tom Godfrey was named the Minnesota Transit Executive Director as of January 1st. He's took a few titles around, and we'll have our good or other opinions about Tom Godfrey, but the fact is he's still there. Did have talks with Congressman Emmer, mostly with Stacey Morris's thing about transit. I think Congressman Emmer was misunderstanding some of the aspects of transit, because everybody likes to lump light rail in with the rest of the transit, and unfortunately when you get thrown in that basket together, people dig in their heels. I think there's been some more understanding about what it actually entails and what goes on. That was a good thing to go there. We still have the software issues for route scheduling because the company we wanted to use, they got bought by somebody else, and it's just been a nightmare. And Commissioner Vetch probably is a little more dialed in on that software problem there. And I think says, well, what do you do? Today at 1 o'clock, they'll have a pre-bid meeting out at Trailblazer for the addition out there. And I asked Alan Wilczek through Mr. Kelly if he could be there. He said he would make a schedule to be there just to make sure that things go smooth. And the bid opening is later on this month, like the
29th.
Also with the MnDOT had an interesting thing about Chisago and Isanti County Transit. There seems to be some issue of some kind up there. I don't know what it would be, but there's a listening session going on, and I asked to be part of it. And Mark Nelson from MnDOT, who I've dealt with at the AMC level on many fronts, he requested that no elected officials be there so they could actually talk frank about different things, talk turkey. So that's on the 28th at 2 p.m. So we'll get an update with that, what came out of that afterwards. I don't know if MnDOT wants us to take it over, facilitate. I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's just, it's kind of a far reach. And I know Sibley and McLeod County have some concerns and valid concerns nonetheless, because there's no direct link from here to there. And I'm anticipating it's more of how to run an operation more than it is us taking it over, because they're liking how this is being run. This one's growing well. And I think that's what it is, but I don't know that for a fact. And then we're looking at somewhere in the September 17th, meeting of the Trailblazer Board, which will be in Buffalo at 9:30. We're anticipating doing the groundbreaking ceremony for that expansion then, instead of prior to construction, because why drive everybody up 56 miles to come out for a 10-minute thing? Let's just make sure they got two things in one day. So a little unusual, the groundbreaking will be after they broke ground, but that's fine. So that, if you want to attend, do that. And they're still having a hard time finding people because they can't get their license, get their whatever the class license for transport. And a lot of people that came in, they approved them, can't get their license, something else. That's about it with Trailblazer. It was a good discussion on a lot of different fronts there in how to deal with COVID and everything else going on. And we met Friday with the Wright County Economic Development Partnership. That was a management committee. We talked about the financials we're doing fine there. Some of the revenue's down a little bit because people have been a little slow to pay. And some companies, because of COVID, they're just basically, we're just cutting off all funding of everything for now. Not a major challenge, but just a few things there. And we talked again about how it's going to look at 2021 board members. We'll need to make it so we stay within the bounds of this. We need to have one person drop out, so Commissioner Vetch could be part of this. That's what we all agreed to. They're fine with that, and we got a few people that are up this time, and a couple of them have already said that if it comes to fruition, comes to fate, we'll just do it that way. We definitely need two county commissioners there to help get us to that next level. The golf event is still going on. That's the first part of September, which is the same Tuesday as a board meeting, so that's going to be tough. And the CEO program, they're looking for new funding streams, if that can be done. The CEO program is for the young people that are future entrepreneurs. It's been a very successful program to start, but we're going to have to need new funding streams at some point in time. And with that, Madam Chair, that's enough for today.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Madam Chair, out of respect of time, I'm going to forego most of it, other than I'll say that we had a good discussion in our AAS
That was a
meeting.
great meeting.
Yes. A lot of good things, interesting conversations. We had a lot of talk about porta potties.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, that
It's a coming
no longer
issue.
being funded, yeah.
Yes, because it's no longer being funded, so next year's contract is going to have to determine whether we want to use a large amount of our AAS funds to have porta potties for inspectors, or what is a reasonable distance that a person should be expected to go to be able to find a bathroom facility. Interesting conversation.
Everything you want to know about porta potties.
Yes. Yes.
They're expensive.
Yes, they're expensive. So with that,
Yeah.
I'll pass. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of good discussion, and they're giving out grants for bait disposal. So they had requests for 14 bait disposal areas, or different areas, and they awarded 13. And essentially, it's like a compost.
It's a bin. It's like
bin. Yep, it's cedar and chicken wire, and so anyway, yeah, there's a lot of information at that meeting. So like you said, in the interest of time, we only have 2 minutes. So we can forward any minutes to the commissioners to get some updated information about that. And met with Safe Communities of Wright County. Unfortunately, Susan Robinson, who's been an excellent director, she has stepped down. She found another position, so we will be looking for a new director. And we're continuing to do one of our requirements as Safe Communities is we write a letter to the editor every month, and so we're continuing with that. So we'll be looking for a new director, and doing most of the meetings, usually the classes, the Right Road for teens and for parent-teen presentations have been via Zoom, but they'll be continuing as best we can do them. And then also Safe Harbor, we're a lot of information. We've kind of got sort of an audit on that with our grant, and there's a lot of good feedback on our core principles, but some things to include in going what we have going forward with our protocols. So, and with that, Commissioner Delyden.
Commissioner Burrell, I'll forego any of mine if you'll forego yours so we can find out if the county administrator has anything important.
Do you have anything, Commissioner Burrell?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. Commissioner Deline?
No, pass
You
mine
sure?
on. Yeah, no, we're running out of time.
Yeah.
It's important to hear from our administrator.
Yes.
So quickly, did have a meeting with Jolene Foss last Wednesday, kind of gave her a very high-level overview of our buckets that we'd created, and kind of said more to come, and how we administer those. We'll have to have more discussions, but kind of talked to her that we anticipated that Wright County Economic Development Partnership would be playing a role in those economic development funds. And of course, as Commissioner Deline mentioned, our session ended last night without a bonding bill, so more to come on that. That's all I really had.
All right. So we have our strategic planning meeting at 10:30. We're going to adjourn our meeting here at 10:30, and we will take 5-minute break. So, thanks, everybody.